Hello everyone, and a pleasure to meet you all. My name is Sergio, and welcome to another Team N.A.S. banger of a video. This time you get to meet me. And while I wish I had some sort of term or title to describe me, I don't. One second I could be solving the most complex equations in the game, and the next I'm like that picture of Patrick Star. You know the one. I idolized this game, and the characters I watched growing up were my heroes. But that's enough about my red flags. Let's talk about what I've done so far in my Yu-Gi-Oh career, which isn't very much competitively as it turns out. For the longest time in my youth, I was always trying to make a deck that I thought had potential good. I remember my first locals tournament, I took Noble Knight Morphtronics and should have topped, but that's another story for another time. I've always had some sort of local success, but I hadn't gone to my first regional until November 5th of 2022, where with Rika Sun Avalon I did top, along with my buddy Rennick. Unfortunately, not all of us could make it to top cut, and Flu Wonderies definitely traumatized Vincent, but it was a great experience overall. And it was with a round 1 loss. Apparently regionals do have a start time that they'd like to start at. I made it to day 2 of the 250th YCS in Los Angeles, California with Rika, where at the end of day 1 I realized my eating and sleeping habits are indeed taking a toll on me. I drew and lost my last 2 rounds of day 1 and again showed up late for day 2. That was our team's first YCS, and we didn't know day 2 started 30 minutes earlier. Truly heartbreaking. Every time I see another Verse Dragon, I'm reminded how capable I am and how hard I can throw. So going forward, I really want to start documenting my achievements and thoughts here on the channel so I can grow, since it seems like I can make something out of this hobby. And I know I can make it. Now to explain what's up with the Infernoble deck in the background. That's my deck. I've been trying to master it since the new support was released in Duelist Nexus, and I must admit, I love it. But Rika really has set the bar high for me, as I've been spoiled by 1-card combos left and right. This deck has several 2-3 card combos that create quite formidable boards, but lose to some of the strongest spells out there that everyone plays, and Troll and Lockbird. So here's a quick profile and some tips. Up first we have 3 copies of Infernoble Knight Ogier. Ogier is one of your main enablers by being able to send any Fire Warrior or Noble Arms card from your deck to the graveyard. A lot of the Infernoble Knight archetype really relishes on the ability to be able to use the graveyard as a secondary resource for combo extension and recovery. So consistently seeing a card in your opening hand that does that is very important. Also something to note is that all the level 4 Infernoble Knight monsters equip themselves from the graveyard to another warrior, granting that warrior an effect. And for Ogier, that effect is preventing the equipped monster from being destroyed by card effects. Next we have 3 copies of Infernoble Knight Renoir. When Renoir is special summoned, it can add back a Fire Warrior or equip spell from the graveyard, or banished, back to your hand. So when comboing it with a card like Ogier, it makes it a sort of pseudo-searcher for a card before playing into a potential Troll and Lockbird. Renoir can also special summon itself by simply controlling a Fire Warrior, making this card in combination with Ogier a must-see in any opening hand. It also makes itself a tuner when summoned this way. Following that, we play 2 copies of Infernoble Knight's Oliver. Oliver can special summon itself by sending an equip spell or Fire Warrior from hand or face up field to the graveyard, and it becomes a level 1 when doing so. One of the key cards in this strategy is a level 5 Synchro monster, and another just needs 2 warriors in the field. So having a card that helps create both those monsters is something you really want to have. It also equips itself from the graveyard to a warrior, making it untargetable by card effects. After Oliver, we play 1 copy of Infernoble Knight Astolfo. Astolfo is another extender that can special summon itself by banishing a Fire Warrior from hand or graveyard. You also have the added caveat of being able to level modify it by the banished monster's level. It also has a second effect that by banishing itself from the graveyard, where, after 2 of your standby phases, it special summons itself along with any one other banished Fire Warrior. Then we play 1 copy of Infernoble Knight Roland. Little Roland is a little bit of a unique card in this deck, where it doesn't help in making any of the powerful monsters in your extra deck directly, but anyone who has played the deck at some point or another wish they played this card, either for the ability to equip to one of your monsters to trigger an effect, or for its second effect, where, during the end phase of the turn it's sent to the graveyard, searches for any Fire Warrior or equip spell. Lastly, for the original Infernoble monsters is Infernoble Knight Magius. When Magius is sent to the graveyard, it shuffles 3 Fire Warriors or Noble Arms cards from the graveyard or banished into the deck, then draws you a card, which you'll see is amazing with all the upcoming 1-ofs. It also equips itself to a warrior from the graveyard, making that warrior indestructible by battle. Up next is some of the new monsters from Duelist Nexus, and we're starting with 1 copy of Infernoble Knight Ricardetto. Ricardetto on its own special summons 1 level 4 or lower fire warrior from your graveyard on summon, or can banish itself from the hand or graveyard to special summon a level 4 or lower fire warrior from hand, but treats it as a tuner. That effect that summons from the graveyard locks the user into warriors, and a player can only use one of the effects of Ricardetto per turn. So remember to keep that in mind if you're playing Infernoble or against it. Then we play 1 copy of Infernoble Knight Serpent. Serpent can special summon itself from the hand or graveyard if you control a face-up equipped card, but if it comes from the graveyard, it's banished when it leaves the field. It can also equip itself from the graveyard to a warrior, and that warrior becomes a tuner. Now there's a lot to say about this card, but essentially this card is amazing for this strategy. It does everything the archetype demands, even turning a monster into a tuner to keep you playing in those weird boards where you have too many non-tuners. Now this next card is one of my favorites, and I think it's being slept on personally, and that is 1 copy of Courageous Crimson Chevalier Bradamante. Bradamante is always treated as an Infernoble Knight card, can discard itself to equip the warrior with any equip spell directly from the deck, not just Noble Arms cards, and has a niche but badass effect to equip the monster that destroyed her as a result of battle in the damage step, outing annoying cards like Mirror Jade. This card is another way to play around Drone Lockbird, and the fact that this card can equip any equipped card at all makes it something you want to remember exists when some sort of crazy equipped card comes out. Now let's get into some of the other Fire Warriors that are not Infernoble Knights, starting with 2 copies of Immortal Phoenix Gearfried. Gearfried is a level 9 warrior extender that summons itself by banishing an equipped spell from field or graveyard, and is a monster negate by sending a face-up equipped card. Not only that, similar to Bradamante, during the damage step, if this card attacks, you can equip a monster from the field to this card, giving it 500 more attack. This is a 3000 attack walking monster negate that absorbs a monster without targeting. This is the definition of a monster. Next we have 1 copy of Super Quantum Red Layer. Whole lot of text for a generic level 5 warrior extender, only when you control no monsters though. Copy of Fireflint Lady. Fireflint Lady is a generic warrior extender that can special summon itself by just simply controlling another warrior, and contribute itself to special summon a level 4 or lower warrior from hand. It also makes that monster untargetable for some reason. Then we have 1 copy of Battling Boxer Uppercutter and 1 copy of Battling Boxer Sparrer. Uppercutter is an insane 1-card combo for the deck, and despite that I haven't gone out of my way to get Sparrer from my good friend Nate. But essentially, Uppercutter on summon searches a Battling Boxer monster, which is Sparrer, and Sparrer summons itself in a way similar to Renoir, but prevents you from entering the battle phase at turn when it's summoned that way. This card is another way to get 2 warriors on the field, and when mixed with Battling Boxer King Dempsey, is a 1-card full combo. That's it for the monsters. Next we have the spells, starting with 3 copies of Heritage of the Chalice, which searches any Noble Knight monster or Noble Arms card, 3 copies of Noble Arms Museum. Museum is a soft once per turn Noble Arms card searcher for 1200 life points. And after that effect has been applied, it lets you special summon one of those Noble Knight monster cards that's in your spell and trap zones, but locks you into warriors if you don't control Emperor Charles at this point. Not that that's an issue. It also buffs your fire warriors by 500 attack. Then we have 2 copies of Infernoble Arms Durendal. All of the Infernoble Arm equipped spells have 2 effects. 1 on the field when equipped to any monster by destroying themselves at resolution, and 1 when they're sent to the graveyard because the equipped monster was sent to the graveyard. Only 1 effect of an Infernoble Arms equipped spell can be used a turn. Durendal either searches you a level 5 or lower fire warrior, or resurrects one from the graveyard. An obviously good card, but it's one you have so much access to you really don't want to see more than 1 of it in your opening hand. Next we have 1 copy of Infernoble Arms Joyeuse. Joyeuse can either add a fire warrior from the graveyard to the hand, or special summon a fire warrior from the hand. Very similar to Renoir, but in an equipped spell form. Then we play 1 copy of Infernoble Arms Almace. Almace is like a proxy equipped spell, similar to Bradamante. This card can equip one of your monsters with a differently named Infernoble Arms equipped spell directly from your deck or graveyard. Its second effect for when it's sent to the graveyard because the equipped monster was sent to the graveyard lets you add back a fire warrior from graveyard or banish back to your hand by targeting it. This card is really a mixture of Bradamante, Renoir, and Joyeuse. Obviously, we play one card of the Divine Sword Phoenix Blade. This card buffs a warrior by 300 attack and can add itself back from the graveyard to the hand over and over by banishing 2 warriors. And in a deck where you're consistently recycling those warriors, a card like that is virtually free. And for our current stack non-engine, we are playing 3 copies of Book of Eclipse, 1 copy of Triple Tactics Talent, 1 Called By, 1 Reinforcement of the Army, and 3 copies of Infinite Impermanence. These are just straightforward good cards. Now let's take a look at the extra deck. First we have possibly the best card in the deck, Angelica, Princess of Noble Arms. She's a level 5 synchro monster that, if summoned, allows you to search for any card that mentions Infernoble Knight Emperor Charles or is named Horn of Oliphant, which usually searches Museum and helps set the stage for your combo. She has an even better second effect that, when targeted for an attack or effect, on resolution will send a fire warrior from your deck to the graveyard, banish yourself until the end phase, and special summon a Roland monster from your deck or extra deck. That target is normally Infernoble Knight Captain Roland. This Roland is a level 5 tuner synchro monster that, when synchro summoned properly, allows you to, at the end phase, send an equip spell from your deck to the graveyard in order to search for any warrior. Very similar to the effect of Bestial Magnemite. But based on how the deck works now, this effect doesn't usually come up. However, its second effect does come up very often. During either player's main phase as a quick effect, this card can equip to a warrior, giving it 500 attack, which doesn't seem all that impactful, but when paired with our next card, it's very important to have that option. Next we have Infernoble Knight Emperor Charles. Emperor Charles is the key monster of the deck. He's a generic level 9 synchro monster with a trigger effect to destroy any card on the field, non-targeting, when any card on the field becomes equipped with an equipped card once per turn. It also has another effect too, during either player's end phase, equipped an equip spell from hand or graveyard to him, and any fire warrior from the deck, in order to gain the effects of its allies like Ogier, Oliver, and Magius. He's what your combos want to be able to make in order to set you up with your real boss monster, sometimes even 2 of them. That boss monster is Link 1 Emperor Charles the Great, a stronger version of Synchro Charles, being able to copy all of Synchro Charles' effects and name on Link Summon, as well as having his own spell and trap negate that's a soft once per turn per copy. You can Link Summon Charles the Great by using 1 level 9 Synchro Charles equipped with an equipped card, and will also equip himself with a copy of Charles from the graveyard, giving him 500 attack. That's where the Roland comes in. This can combo with Museum to special summon the equipped Synchro Charles to create a second Charles the Great, giving you 2 spell and trap negates while having 2 monsters over 3500 attack. Then for our last 2 synchros, we play 1 copy of Baron de Fleur and 1 copy of Ignoble Knight High Lancelin. High Lancelin adds some utility to the deck by allowing you to equip a Noble Arms equip spell from the deck to him on synchro summon. It also has the second effect to search for 1 or a Noble Knight at the end of the battle phase if it destroyed a monster by battle. Next we have our Xyz monster, starting with Battling Boxer King Dempsey. Dempsey is a rank 4 that takes 2 level 4 monsters and basically allows you to search for a level 4 fire warrior on summon, or send 1 to the graveyard. This is a part of a 1-card combo that's easily made using Battling Boxer, Uppercutter, and Sparrow from earlier, but its effects alone make it a great option to have available in any situation that you have 2 level 4s and are looking for something else. You can also detach 1 material from it to prevent your opponent from targeting any Battling Boxers you control by card effect. Not that that comes up very often, but it's a good way to get 1 of your 2 materials back into the graveyard. Next up we have 1 copy of Artorigus, King of the Noble Knights. This card takes 2 level 4 Noble Knight monsters and on Xyz summon lets you equip up to 3 Noble Arms equip spells from the graveyard onto him. He has a second effect to detach 1 material from itself and destroy any number of spells and traps on the field up to the amount of Noble Arms cards equipped on the field. Next we have 1 copy of Sacred Noble Knight of King Custennin. Custennin takes 2 level 4 Noble Knight monsters to summon and can detach any number of material from himself to target that many face-up cards your opponent controls and bounce them back to the hand. And if this card happens to be destroyed, it can Xyz summon another Noble Knight Xyz monster from your extra deck and attach itself as material, comboing it nicely with a card like King Artorigus. Up next we have the rest of our Link monsters, starting with 1 copy of Ferocious Flame Swordsman, which powers up all of our warriors by 500 attack and has a second effect that special summons a non-Link warrior from graveyard when it's destroyed. However, that monster is banished when it leaves the field. 1 copy of Ra-Ten, the Heavenly General. A Link 3, which during the standby phase, special summons a monster from your hand to a zone this card points to that matches the type of another monster this card points to. It also targets and destroys a card on the field at the start of the battle phase. 1 copy of Goki, the Power Load Ogre, a Link 4 that's unaffected by card effects and contribute itself for cost to target 4 cards in the field and destroy them, outing problematic cards like Skill Drain. And 2 copies of our key Link monster Isolde, 2 Tales of the Noble Knights. Isolde is our key Link 2 that takes 2 warrior monsters and searches you any warrior on summon, but prohibits you from summoning or activating that monster's effects. Most importantly, however, is Isolde's second effect to send any number of different equip spells from your deck to the graveyard for cost, to summon a warrior from your deck whose level matches the number of equip spells sent. The key card you want to summon off this effect is Ricardetto, which will on summon special summon one of the monsters used for Isolde's Link summon, which will then turn into the synchro monster Angelica, which will grab you the field spell Museum, and so on and so forth. And with that, guys, concludes my deck. I know it's a lot to explain, and I really tried hard to only integrate the important stuff, but this deck is just awesome. I think Konami did a really good job designing the new support for the archetype because it feels like one of those powerful decks like DDD or Phantom Knights that clearly has an insane amount of options, while making those options difficult to choose from when attempting to establish a board, and making the deck overall not an immediate tier 1 must play like Kashtira or Pearly, because of how extreme or conditionally those options are. And that board is really powerful if your opponent can't prevent it or break it, and I think a skilled pilot will be able to dodge the obstacles and be able to use the deck's interactions against the right targets that will make this deck look broken. But the difficulty curve is just high enough where I don't think people will be running into it consistently, and the people who do play the deck, the significance of their success will have more to do with skill and less to do with luck. But I could just be coping. And lastly, we have the side. Alright guys, so while the side deck is showing up, I just want to say, Jesus, my god, editing sucks. I've never really done it before. I can tell I went overboard. This video took way too long to make. But I just thought, you know, maybe something different is something you guys could be looking for. I know this wasn't the most high quality video, but I definitely tried to make it something like it. And I mean, I just hope at least some of you really enjoyed it. It took a really long time to make. Granted, I'm probably gonna get faster and faster at it over time, but if I'm gonna continue going forward making deck profiles like this for a deck that I haven't necessarily done anything significant with yet, yeah, that might not be an often thing. So for this one, I just wanted to do something nice for my first video. So I really hope you guys enjoy it. I know I said I was going to do tips. I realized this video is getting pretty long. I have a knack for overthinking and over-explaining, so I'll probably do a separate video on it. Maybe when I actually do something with the deck, or hell, when I even know what exactly I'm doing. I know a lot of what I'm doing, and I think I have it mentally together, but I can't put it into a language. So nonetheless, guys, thanks for watching, and yeah, stay safe. See you next time.